My fiancée bailed on our celebrity wedding 5 minutes before the vows with a text. You're too predictable for someone like me. I read it aloud at the venue and turned our $60,000 ceremony into a freedom bash. 2 days later, dumped by her sports agent fling in a hotel, she came crawling back. I remember the day I first met Celeste like it was yesterday. My name is Damon. I'm 30 years old, an Olympic swimmer who spent more time in chlorinated water than on dry land. I live in a sleek condo near the training complex in San Diego, California. Back then, I thought I was living the dream. Celeste walked into my life at a charity event 4 years ago, the kind where everyone tries too hard to act natural in rented tuxes and sequin dresses. She was there to promote a new fitness brand, looking every bit the part of the former fitness model turned influencer. She had this energy, loud, bright, impossible to ignore. She came up to me with a grin and said, "You're Damon, right? I loved watching you swim in Rio." I should have known right then she'd always be the center of every room. We clicked fast. I was drawn to her spontaneity, the way she made everything seem fun and effortless. She liked how driven I was, how I could talk for hours about split times and training regimens. In the beginning, it felt balanced. She'd drag me out for late-night ice cream runs or spur-of-the-moment beach bonfires. I'd steady her, bring her back to earth when she got carried away. It worked. For years in, we lived together in that condo overlooking the ocean. Weekends were our time. We'd sit on the balcony drinking coffee, watching the sunrise over the water, talking about the future like we had it all mapped out: kids, a house, maybe a dog. Those mornings felt real. Then came the proposal. It was after a big meet, one of my best performances. She was glowing, cheering me on from the stands, eyes wide with pride. I remember the adrenaline still buzzing in my veins when I dropped to one knee later that night. She gasped, covered her mouth with her hands, and said yes before I even finished the question. I thought I was the luckiest guy alive. But looking back, that's when the shift started. The moment that ring slipped onto her finger, it was like she saw her future open up, and it was bigger than us. She went into wedding mode immediately, talking about venues and color schemes and hashtags for the perfect sports power couple reveal. She said she wanted the world to see how perfect we were together. I believed her. I didn't mind footing the bills at first. I figured, this is my life now. I paid for the ring, the fancy restaurant where I popped the question, even her branding shoots for the wedding announcement. She said it was all for us, for our story. I told myself that made it worth it. But slowly, something in me started to notice the cracks. Late at night, lying awake in bed, I'd wonder if this was still the same woman who used to curl up next to me on the couch with takeout, who teased me about my swim tan lines. Or if this was a version of her that only came out when there was an audience. Those doubts crept in more often than I wanted to admit. I'd watch her scroll through endless streams of content ideas, talking about the perfect couple aesthetic, like it was a product to be sold. She was always looking ahead, planning for the next big reveal, the next viral post. I tried to tell myself it was just her way of being excited. That maybe I was being too cautious, too stuck in routine. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that what we had was starting to feel performative. Like love was a brand, and I was just the sponsor. Back then, I thought love was enough. That we were enough. But the more she leaned into the spotlight, the more I realized I was just a prop in her story, someone to hold the ring, someone to foot the bill, someone to make her dreams look perfect on paper. I wanted to believe we could still be those two kids on the balcony, talking about kids of our own and a dog named Murphy. But even then, in those quiet moments, I knew that the future we were building was only half real. And the other half? It was just for show. Celeste's obsession with building her brand became all-consuming. It started subtly, a quick selfie after my practice, a video of me making breakfast with her commentary in the background. Damon's morning routine. #couple goals. She'd say, her phone always propped up on a tripod. I didn't mind at first. I figured it was harmless, part of her work. But soon, it was everywhere. Every conversation turned into an opportunity for content. Hold that protein shake like this, she'd instruct me, flipping her phone to record. People love the raw behind-the-scenes stuff. Raw. That's what she called it. But nothing about it felt real. It was scripted. Manufactured. I remember the first time I felt that uneasy twist in my gut. We were at the training complex, and she was setting up this elaborate shot. "Smile like you just won a gold medal," she chirped. I did it, because I thought that's what love was. Supporting her. But when I saw the post later, with the caption, "Living the dream with my future husband, brand deals pending," I didn't recognize the guy in the photo. He looked like someone playing a role. She started talking less about the wedding and more about monetizing the hype. Her words, not mine. Sponsorship deals, followers, product placements, like our life was a marketing campaign. I'd come home from hours in the pool, shoulders aching, lungs burning, and she'd be there, phone in hand, talking about how many likes her latest post got. "Can you believe it?" She'd say, eyes bright. "This is going to change everything." I tried to be patient. I really did. I told myself she was just excited. that it would pass once the wedding was done. But it didn't. If anything, it got worse. One morning, she sat me down at the kitchen table. "I'm thinking of quitting my job," she said, as casually as if she were talking about trying a new shampoo. "I want to go full-time with this. There's so much potential if I really commit." I remember staring at her, my fork halfway to my mouth, feeling the ground shift under me. "Celeste," I said carefully, "I thought you liked your job. You worked hard to get there." She shrugged. "It's not my passion. This is." I tried to support her, to be the partner she wanted me to be. I offered to help with the logistics, to take on more of the bills while she figured things out. But every time I tried to talk about balance, about maybe keeping some stability, she brushed me off. "You're just not seeing the bigger picture," she'd say, her tone dismissive. "You're too grounded." It's uninspiring. The wedding planning turned into a battleground. She wanted luxury everything, top-shelf champagne, couture dresses, a venue that overlooked the ocean. The registry was a mile long, filled with things neither of us needed, but she insisted we had to have. "It's about the experience," she'd argue. "People expect this from us now." I remember one night, she showed me this ad for a luxury SUV. "A real wedding gift would be this," she said, eyes sparkling like it was a joke. But when I didn't laugh, she rolled her eyes. "It's aspirational, Damon. That's the whole point." It was in that moment, her saying that with a straight face, not even flinching, that I realized how far apart we were drifting. She wasn't talking about us anymore. She was talking about her brand, and I was just another prop in her production. I tried to compromise, to find a middle ground. I suggested smaller ideas, more intimate touches that would feel real. But every time I brought it up, she looked at me like I was speaking a different language. "This is bigger than just us, Damon," she'd say, her voice tinged with impatience. "This is how we set ourselves up for the future." The future. That word used to make me think of late nights on the balcony, of kids running barefoot through the grass, of the life we used to plan when no one else was watching. Now it felt like a buzzword in her sales pitch. The more she talked about followers and sponsorships, the more I felt like I was losing her, and myself. But I couldn't say it out loud, not yet. Instead, I let her dream her dreams and watched from the sidelines as the life we'd built together got swallowed up by a brand that had my name on it, but none of my heart. It started with little things. Celeste would disappear for hours at a time, claiming she was meeting with photographers or dress designers. "Media coordination," she'd say with a dismissive wave of her hand, like it was all part of her job now. But she'd come back with bags of expensive clothes and new perfumes, her stories never quite adding up. One night, I found a receipt from a boutique that wasn't even in our city. I held it in my hand, the total more than I'd spent on a month of groceries, and asked her about it. She laughed, but it was forced. "Oh, that's for a shoot. My sister's helping me plan it. You know how these things are." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think she was just caught up in her own head, not whatever else it could be. But her phone would buzz with messages she'd never let me see. If I asked about them, she'd roll her eyes. "Damon, you're overthinking. Just let me handle this." The worst part was how normal it all looked on the surface. She still posted sweet photos of us on social media, us at the beach, me holding her hand. "My rock," she'd caption them, while I stood there feeling like an extra in her highlight reel. In real life, she was slipping away. She'd come home late, her hair smelling of expensive shampoo, and that perfume she never wore for me. She'd kiss my cheek and say, "Long day," and I'd nod, pretending I didn't notice. I started doubting my own instincts. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just being paranoid because the wedding was coming up and I was stressed. But the more I tried to convince myself, the more the evidence piled up. Her family didn't help. They acted like we were merging companies instead of planning a wedding. Her mother would corner me at family dinners, asking about my endorsements, how much I had saved up for, after the wedding. Her father wanted to know about my plans for retirement. It wasn't about us. It was about how much they could squeeze out of me before I stopped saying yes. The final straw was a photo she posted. A perfect, glossy portrait of her in a dress I'd never seen. She said her sister took it, but I knew she didn't even talk to her sister like that. The lighting was professional, the makeup immaculate. It was a small lie, but it cracked something inside me. Because if she could lie about something that's small, what else was she lying about? I confronted her that night. I showed her the photo on my phone, my finger shaking. "Why didn't you just tell me who took this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She didn't flinch. "You're making a big deal out of nothing, Damon," she said, her eyes cold. "It was just easier this way." I didn't know what to say to that. I just stood there, feeling like I was losing my mind. I wanted to believe her, but every instinct in me screamed that something was wrong, that she was playing a game I didn't even know the rules to. At night, lying in bed next to her, I'd watch the ceiling and wonder if I was the only one still trying. I'd think about those balcony talks we used to have, how we wanted a house, kids, a dog named Murphy. But those dreams felt so far away now, like someone else's life. The wedding was still on, but I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, one step away from a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. And Celeste? She just kept spinning her stories, weaving a world where everything looked perfect on the outside while the inside was falling apart. I didn't know how much longer I could pretend not to see it. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early, still hoping it would all come together. My phone buzzed as soon as I turned it on, so I thought maybe Celeste was reaching out. Nerves, last-minute details, something normal. But it was just my mom asking if I'd seen her yet. I texted Celeste a simple, "I love you. Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle," and hit send. No reply. I tried to brush it off. She was probably getting her hair done, surrounded by bridesmaids fussing over every little thing. But as the hours passed, my stomach tightened. My calls went straight to voicemail. No updates, no check-ins, nothing. It was like she had vanished. At the venue, everything looked perfect. White roses lining the aisle, the ocean glittering beyond the arch. The guests started arriving, murmuring about the view and the weather. Her parents looked calm, too calm. Her mom gave me a tight smile. Her dad shook my hand like he was greeting a stranger. I kept glancing at the entrance, waiting for her to come through, but she didn't. I remember the exact moment I realized something was wrong. The wedding coordinator walked over to me, her headset crackling in her ear. 5 minutes until the ceremony, Damon, she said, all cheerful and professional. I nodded, but my heart was racing. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and she was nowhere to be seen. I stepped outside for air, my hand shaking. My phone buzzed again, and when I looked down, it was from Celeste. Just one line. "I can't marry you. You're too routine for me. I need excitement. Goodbye." I read it twice, the words blurring as the blood rushed in my ears. I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to call her, to demand an explanation. Another part of me just stood there, frozen. She was gone. I walked back into the venue, the guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats. I could feel their eyes on me, feel their confusion and the whispers starting. My best friend, Jake, caught my eye from the front row. He gave me a look that said, "You don't have to do this," but I knew I did. I took the mic from the coordinator, my hands surprisingly steady. The room fell silent. Every face turned to me. "Celeste won't be joining us today," I said, my voice calm, almost detached. "She sent me a text saying she can't marry me because I'm too routine for her." A ripple of shock went through the crowd. Her mother gasped, her father's face went red. But I didn't care. I read the text aloud, word for word, so there was no confusion, no whispered rumors later. Then I took a breath and said, "I'm not going to let this ruin today. You're all here, the food's been paid for, the band's here, let's turn this into something real. A celebration of freedom and truth." Some people didn't know how to react. A few guests looked away, embarrassed for me. But others nodded, clapped, even cheered a little. I could feel something shift inside me, like the final piece of a puzzle snapping into place. I wasn't going to let her take everything from me. So we stayed. We ate the food, drank the champagne. We danced and laughed, not for a wedding that would never happen, but for something else, something better. A new beginning that didn't include her. I stood there, glass in hand, watching the sun set over the ocean. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. Celeste had her brand, her drama, her endless need for the spotlight. But I had something better. I had the truth. And in that moment, that was enough. The first hour was the hardest. Half the guests left right after I read the text. I didn't blame them. They'd come for a wedding and ended up with a car crash. But the ones who stayed? Those were the people who mattered. Jake was the first to come over. He clapped me on the shoulder, his grin wide. "Damon," he said, "you're a legend for how you handled that. Let's make this night ours." And that's what we did. We moved the tables out of the way so the band could set up properly. Someone opened another bottle of champagne. The caterers, at first unsure what to do, quickly got into the spirit of it. "Food's paid for," one of them shrugged. "Might as well enjoy it." So we did. We danced to songs we hadn't heard since high school. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. We ate gourmet hors d'oeuvres like they were bar snacks. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt like myself again. In quiet moments, I found myself drifting back to the balcony at home. The conversations Celeste and I used to have about kids and houses, about a life that felt real. But those dreams didn't sting the way I thought they would. They felt like someone else's life now, a movie I'd watched but never really lived in. Jake leaned over during a break in the music, his beer in hand. "You know what's funny?" he said, his voice low so only I could hear. "You didn't lose love tonight. You dodged a leech." I snorted out a laugh, the first real one I'd had in days. "Yeah," I said, clinking my glass against his. "I guess I did." The night rolled on, and I could see it on people's faces, the relief of it all, the freedom. We weren't pretending anymore. No speeches, no Instagrammable moments. Just real people, real conversations, real laughter. At one point, I stepped outside, needing a break from the noise. The night air was cool, the ocean black under the moonlight. I thought about Celeste somewhere out there, probably already spinning a story for her followers. But it didn't matter anymore. She could have her drama, her brand. She could have her lies. I had this messy, beautiful night with people who actually gave a damn. I went back inside and found Jake leading a conga line through the tables. My mom was there too, holding a glass of wine and dancing with an uncle I hadn't seen in years. She caught my eye, her smile tired but real. She mouthed, "I'm proud of you." And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. As the night wound down, I found myself standing at the edge of the dance floor, just watching. Watching my friends, my family, the people who showed up when everything fell apart. And I realized something. I wasn't grieving Celeste. I was grieving the illusion. The version of her I thought was real. When the last song ended, we all stood there in the soft glow of the fairy lights, a little drunk, a little raw. And I felt lighter, like I'd finally put down something I'd been carrying for way too long. Jake raised his glass for one final toast. "To Damon," he said, his voice hoarse from laughing. "To the man who didn't get married today, but found something better instead." Everyone cheered, and I laughed with them. Because it was true. Today wasn't the start of a marriage. It was the start of me finally seeing my own worth. And that was worth celebrating. Celeste vanished for days after the wedding fiasco. I didn't hear from her, didn't see a single new post on her carefully curated feeds. It was like she'd been swallowed up by the silence she'd always run from. But I knew it wouldn't last. For days later, she started texting. First it was short. "Hey, can we talk?" Like nothing had happened. Then came the flood. "Please, Damon, let's rewrite the story. We can fix this. Let's reschedule." She didn't sound sorry, not really. It was like she was negotiating a brand deal, not reaching out to the man she'd left standing at the altar. I didn't reply. I was done playing the part she'd cast me in. The truth started to trickle out from a mutual friend, Jason, who met me at a quiet cafe downtown. He looked uncomfortable, stirring his coffee over and over before finally speaking. "Damon," he said carefully, "I think you should know. Celeste wasn't in this for love. She and that flashy sports agent she's always with, they had a plan." I stared at him, feeling that old ache in my chest. "A plan?" "Yeah," Jason sighed. "She was going to marry you, ride the power couple image, and then," he hesitated. "Then she was going to leave. Divorce you after a year or so, take a big settlement." The agent had it all mapped out. She thought she'd be set for life. I sat back in my chair, the pieces clicking into place like some sick jigsaw puzzle. The luxury registries, the endless branding shoots, the obsession with sponsorships, it all made sense now. She wasn't building a life. She was building a payday. "What happened?" I asked. My voice was flat, calm. Too calm. Jason's eyes flicked to me. "The agent ghosted her after the wedding bombed. No wedding, no marriage, no payout. She's stuck. And her family? They're turning on her too, but they're still trying to come after you." Sure enough, it didn't take long for the demands to start. Her parents called me, voices dripping with forced sympathy. "Damon, we need to talk," her mother said sweetly, like nothing had happened. She's fragile right now. You need to help her through this. She's family." Family. That word felt like poison in my mouth. Then came the real kicker. Her father tried to guilt me into paying for the canceled wedding expenses. "You already paid for most of it," he said, voice low and insistent. "It's only fair you cover the rest. She's your fiancée." "No," I cut in. "She's not." When they kept pushing, I didn't argue. I got a lawyer. Cease and desist letters went out the next day. To Celeste. To her family. To anyone who thought they could turn my heartbreak into a meal ticket. My lawyer was precise, his voice calm as he read through the paperwork. "We're done here, Damon. Let them play their games somewhere else." It wasn't about money anymore. It was about cutting the last threads that tied me to her circus. At night, I'd lie in bed, the echoes of the last few weeks replaying in my head. The "I can't marry you" text. Her face the last time I saw her, so sure of her own story. The way she looked past me, even as she took everything I offered. But I didn't feel empty. I felt clean. Like a wound that had finally been washed out and left to heal. She could keep her games, her agent, her endless need for attention. I wasn't part of it anymore. And that, more than anything else, felt like freedom. The honeymoon resort was non-refundable. She'd chosen it, of course, an over-the-top luxury suite on a private island in the South Pacific. At first, I thought about canceling everything, letting it all go to waste like the rest of our plans. But then Jake showed up at my door, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "You're not seriously gonna let that place go unused, are you?" he said. "Damon, come on. You earned it. Let's go." So we packed our bags and boarded the flight. Two best friends, no wedding, no pressure. Just two guys who'd survived the storm and were ready to breathe again. The first day, I couldn't shake the sense of it all being wrong, like I was trespassing on someone else's dream. But the ocean had a way of washing those feelings away. We surfed at dawn, paddling out into warm, rolling waves that felt endless. I let the salt water sting my eyes. The sun beat down on my back. And with every wave I caught, I felt a little bit lighter, like the past was being rinsed out of me one breath at a time. At night, we'd sit on the porch of the overwater bungalow, drinks in hand, the ocean stretching out into the darkness. Jake would crack jokes, trying to keep it light, but I knew he was watching me, making sure I didn't sink back into the mess of it all. You know, he said one night, his voice soft over the sound of the water, she didn't take anything real from you. That was all an act. You're still here. Still Damon. I looked at the stars above us, the endless sky, and for the first time in a long while, I believed it. She hadn't taken the real me. She just tried to sell a version of me that didn't exist. On our last night, I met a staffer named Leah at the beach bar. She was local, quick to laugh, with a kindness that didn't feel forced. We talked about the island, about how the tide shifted everything, about how some people come here running from their past. She told me her own story, how she'd once planned to leave, but found peace in staying. The ocean always knows what you're trying to let go, she said, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. And for a moment, it felt like she was talking straight to my bones. When we left, I didn't feel like I was running away anymore. It wasn't a vacation. It was a clean slate, a chance to take the ashes of everything Celeste tried to build and let the wind carry them away. On the flight home, Jake posted one photo, me standing on the beach, the surfboard in my hand, the sun rising behind me. The caption was simple: new waters, real routes. We didn't tag anyone, didn't make a show of it, but I knew she'd see it. And I hoped it stung, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I wanted her to see that she hadn't broken me. The ocean took the weight of it all and gave me back something better, a sense of my own strength. A reminder that even when everything else crumbles, the tide keeps coming in. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to meet it head on. For months later, I'm back in the water, back in my routine. But this time, it's on my terms. I'm training harder, but not for anyone else's expectations. Just for me. There's a calm in the pool that I never noticed before, a rhythm that feels like mine alone. Celeste's name has stopped coming up in conversation. Her online sob stories, videos with tear-streaked makeup, captions about betrayal, never caught on. People see through it now. Her followers have moved on, her engagement numbers dropping like a stone. The house of cards she built is finally collapsing, and there's a quiet relief in that. Because it means I was never crazy. I was never the problem. Jake and I still talk about that night at the wedding, but not like a horror story anymore. More like a lesson. Man, you're the only guy I know who turned a wedding day into a party, he says, half teasing, half proud. I just laugh, because it's true. I turned what was supposed to be the worst day of my life into the first day of something real. I'm not dating again, not yet. There's a part of me that wonders if I even want to. It's not because I'm bitter, I'm not. It's because I've learned to love the quiet, the space I've carved out for myself. I've learned to trust the difference between someone who loves you for you and someone who loves the idea of you. On long runs by the beach, I think about those balcony talks Celeste and I used to have. The house with the white picket fence, the kids, the dog named Murphy. Back then, it felt like the future. Now, it feels like a story someone else wrote. And that's okay. I don't miss it. I don't miss her. What I've got now is more solid. Friends who showed up when everything fell apart. Family who proved they weren't just there for the Instagram perfect moments. And me, stronger, wiser, and a hell of a lot more patient with myself. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes what feels like devastation is actually the start of freedom. It's the door you needed to close to see the path you were meant to walk. I don't have everything figured out, but I don't feel like I have to anymore. The last night of the trip, I stood in the water, the waves cold and steady around my ankles. I thought about everything I'd lost and how much more I'd gained by letting it go. And that's my final message to anyone who's ever been left behind. Heartbreak doesn't have to break you. Sometimes it saves you. And when it does, that's when you finally understand that peace isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of yourself.